This week on the Analog Circle podcast, we get more rumors on the length of GTA 6. Are we talking about 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours? Oh, we will definitely discuss. We get more news about the Switch 2 and who will be behind powering the next console. Who is the chip manufacturer? Who's the people or the company that got the deal? We will definitely be covering that as well. Rocksteady is allegedly working on a new Batman with a bit of a twist to the story. Now, when I say story, I'm not talking about the Batman game has a twist, but the outcome is very, very interesting on what is being rumored to be the case. And we get more information on what Sony Santa Monica is working on. All of these stories can be found here and more in episode 225 of the Analog Circle podcast. I am your host, Keon Mitchell, and welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Kick back, relax, take off your shoes, sit in your favorite chair because we're going to have a nice conversation today. Now, before we get started, as always, if you do want to be a part of listener feedback, shout out to you, Cody Clark. You keep them coming, my brother. But if you do want to be a part of the next listener feedback, you can do it two different ways. You can either write in, and the email address is the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. It's the name of the show. Or you can call in, and I actually have an official phone number for the podcast to set up voicemail and everything. So if you don't want to write in, if you don't feel like texting, if you don't feel like sitting at your keyboard and typing in every single word on your phone, you can simply call in and let your voice be heard by calling in at 443-461-6551. Now, without further ado, guys, I do believe it is time to get into what we all come here for, and that is no other than the gaming news that went down. That first off, God dog it, I would be remiss if I did not bring up that state of play. Now, if you want to hear my thoughts, you want to hear what I thought about the show, you can always download that episode or listen to it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast set. But I will tell you, if you don't want to listen to it, that's fine, because I'm not going to hold you. I gave that show between a 6 and a 7, around like a 6.5. There was a couple of games on there that did look good. They looked decent, but you could tell they were AA games. There's nothing wrong with AA games. But when you are Sony, when you are the leader, when you are the company that has kind of set the bar for what this generation is, you kind of expect a little bit more than what you got. At least I did. I knew that this was a state of play. I never put it in my mind that this was going to be their showcase, as it were. But I was just hoping to see a little bit more. Not a little bit more. I was hoping to see a lot more, of some better announcements. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn remake or remaster. God dog it. They caught me, though. They got me. $10 for the upgrade, and I never beat the original. I have it. Never finished it. So for $10, I get to actually kind of experience those kind of graphics that you kind of experience in Horizon Forbidden West. For $10, I'm not too mad at that. I mean, we had Soul Reaver. What was it? Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered. That was shown, I'll be honest with you, man. Oh, shucks. I saw that. I said, this ain't bad. This ain't bad at all. But man, oh man, that Joker is dated though. It's dated. And I mean, we are getting remastered and, well, not remake necessarily, but remastered to death. Luna was on the stage, well, on the state of play stage, as it were. Ah, darn, they talking about they did some work on that. I didn't see a drop. I didn't see it, brothers and sisters. I'm sitting there looking, squinching my eyes up like, I could see it. Couldn't see it at all. Plus, I was never a big Luna fan, so I'm not really looking forward to that. They had a couple of other games that were shown. Stuff that just really wasn't moving me. That Dragon's Age, oh man. That could be running. I said it before and I say it again and I say it again if somebody asks. That game looks like it could be running on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 hardware. And that was the problem with this show. This state of play. I'm not going to call it a show because people will be like, well, wasn't there a showcase? But y'all know exactly what I'm saying. That was my problem. These games don't look like they're pushing the envelope of what the PlayStation 5 is capable of doing. So how the heck is anybody supposed to have a lot of confidence that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be worth the money when you know that for the most part, third parties are not going to be the ones to show off the power? Yes, Rocksteady Rockstar will more than likely take advantage of the PlayStation 5 Pro as much as they possibly can, but they are an anomaly. Most of them are going to take the easiest route. They're not going to put in that wrench time, that work. And it just has me questioning just a little bit on if the PlayStation 5 Pro is actually going to be worth the money, especially when you're talking about hardware coming out roughly in about, another 2 to 3 years, possibly between maybe 2026 and 2027, somewhere around in there. I just don't know, man. I mean, they had a couple of other games that were shown. 6.5 is where I'm at. Sony, you got to do better. I like the Astrobot announcement and all of that. That was cool, but I don't want to waste too much more time on that. If you do want to hear the rest of the things that I went over, you can always check out that episode, and I would be happy and very, very grateful if you would. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead though, and let's get into the first story for this week that I actually got from Comic Book. So, again, I just talked about it just a second ago. Let's get into some GTA 6 rumors.
Rumor has it it's something that only I know.
Oh, man. All right. Let's see. Now, as rumors suggest, and again, I got this from Comic Book, but as rumors suggest, it seems that allegedly Grand Theft Auto 6 will not be longer or the same length as Red Dead Redemption 2, but instead shorter. And this rumor is coming from YouTuber Legacy Killer HD. Now, to put things into perspective, without, really blowing things too far out of proportion like a lot of people like to do, Red Dead Redemption 2 without the side quests takes around 50 hours. I mean, for me, man, that joke, I did a couple of side quests. I had about 60 something hours into that game and I still didn't do everything. But if you were just doing the base game, you're talking about 50 hours or so, to beat it. Now, as far as Grand Theft Auto 5 goes, that takes around 32 hours when playing just the campaign. So it's already, God dog, that is a big difference. It is already possibly, or at least Grand Theft Auto 5 is already 18 hours difference between the two. Now, Legacy Killer HD did say this. He said, quote, the game, and he's talking about Grand Theft Auto 6 with this quote. He says, the game is massive, full of a ish load. Oh man, y'all can piece it together. Full of a ish load of side content. A lot of countryside and towns. Main story is shorter than Red Dead Redemption 2. One central theme from a few sources is criminals figuring things out. Family struggles. Sounded like a more grounded story to me, but there's still a lot of the usual insanity and missions. Heard some are inspired by Fast and Furious movies. Like there's supposedly, now this is something that's supposed to be in the game, some mission. He's saying there's supposedly something like the below vault chase scene from Fast 5. End of quote. I didn't see Fast and Furious 5, but if any of you guys have seen that and you know about that below the vault chase scene, I'm sure it's probably crazy. He said, as always, well, nah, that was the end of his quote. But for me, I'm saying, as always with rumors, take this information with a mustard seed of truth because we just don't know. Now, again, I played Grand Theft Auto 5. I probably, with a couple of the side missions and stuff like that, it took me much more longer than 32 hours. I guess I told y'all, I'm not that great at gaming. It's my favorite hobby. It's the thing that I love, absolutely love the most when it comes to hobbies. But I have never been the best at it. So for me, I think I clocked in roughly about 60-something hours in Grand Theft Auto 5. And keep in mind, I'm not doing all of the side missions or any of that stuff. So for the mere fact that allegedly, because this is rumors, allegedly Grand Theft Auto 6, for it to be allegedly shorter than Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't think that's necessarily a red flag. I mean, as long as they have the technology there, the gameplay is there, the story is there, the character development, the rumors that we've heard, again, more of these rumors with GTA 6 is something new every week. But there was a rumor out there that did say that you could go into about 70% of the buildings in the game. Could you imagine that? Being able to access 70% of the buildings inside of a Grand Theft Auto game? Oh my gosh, that would be madness if it is true. But again, take it all with a mustard seed of truth. I'm sure we will definitely find out about this. Not soon, but, in the near future, we'll find out if this rumor is true or not. But I wouldn't really hit the panic button just yet because, again, Grand Theft Auto 5 was not a short game, especially when you're talking about counting in the side missions and things of that nature. But we shall see. Let's go ahead, though, guys, and let's move into the next story that I actually got from WCCF Tech. Now, this isn't huge Nintendo news, but it does pertain to the Switch 2. Now, AMD had a chance to power the Nintendo Switch 2, but lost the bid due to handheld performance and power efficiency, according to rumors from Moore's Law is dead. So it's being reported that AMD's chips performance and efficiency at 5 watts wasn't good enough. And AMD wanted Nintendo to push the system in handheld mode up to 15 watts to get a true next generation performance. But Nintendo didn't want to push the console that far and didn't want to have a heavier battery. So ultimately, NVIDIA won the deal because their chip provided the same power as AMD's chip with better efficiency and a cheaper node, which will help Nintendo to keep costs down. Now, it's also being said the Switch 2 will have much better battery life than the original Switch and will consume much less power in handheld mode. Now, this is very interesting because AMD, this is not the first time that AMD and NVIDIA have seen each other in these last couple of weeks, because I believe it was last week we were talking about the PlayStation 6, where NVIDIA had actually lost that deal to AMD because PlayStation wanted to make sure that their games would be backwards compatible from the PlayStation 5 to the PlayStation 6. And with them switching over to NVIDIA's architecture or whatever may have you, their chipset, it could have possibly disrupted, pardon me, I can't talk, but disrupted that situation. So instead they opted to stay with AMD. But this is so interesting, the way these things go, the way that these things shake out. I mean, just a week ago, about a week ago, doggone, NVIDIA was getting pretty much outbid because it was cheaper for them to stay with AMD as well. But now this week, we're reading that they just got another deal with Nintendo, and AMD lost out. So, I mean, that's why it's great to have competition on the on the open market. somebody is talking crazy about their price, you can always undercut that, go to somebody else who has just as good of a product, if not better, and can possibly get it for cheaper, because they did say, once again, this report from WCCF Tech did say that this node or this battery, let me make sure I can find it, because I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing. But yeah, they said it was a cheaper node. NVIDIA was able to offer them a cheaper node, which would help Nintendo to keep the cost down. Now, of course, we have heard the rumor that this is going to be around $400. The Switch 2 is supposed to be somewhere in the PlayStation 4 range, a little bit better than the Xbox Series S. From what the rumors are saying, of course, don't believe them. We're just talking about it because it is interesting information, and some things do seem to line up, with this. But of course, take this all with a mustard seed of truth. Now, speaking of Nintendo, on September 20th, Nintendo filed a FCC application for what appears to be a peripheral for Switch 2 that supports a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi antenna that could support the console wirelessly and could connect to a TV without a dock. Now, the thing that I read, if I'm not mistaken, and hopefully I'm remembering correctly because my memory is terrible, but I believe 2.4 gigahertz at a Wi-Fi signal is like the bare minimum that you can have. So we also heard rumors that Nintendo was going to have some kind of peripheral or something that was going to make it so you would be able to play your Nintendo Switch on any TV screen with this peripheral that they're supposed to have. So here it is. This week we find out September 20th, they filed this FCC application. And, again, we heard this a couple of weeks ago, and it just seems like things continue to keep lining up, with some of the rumors that we've been hearing. But how dope would that be? I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know. I have no idea what the inner workings of that would be, to be able to make something wirelessly actually transfer over to your TV. Well, I mean, we do it with our phones all the time. We can actually do that. So I know the technology exists, but to have it where you could play your Nintendo Switch 2 on any screen and not have to dock it, the only thing I'd be worried about a little bit is latency, possibly with that. I don't know how that would work out, but nonetheless, it's a cool idea. Again, with patents, you never know if it's going to come to fruition. Sometimes they just file things and it doesn't, always mean that it's going to come to the market. So we'll definitely have to keep our eyes on this to see what happens with Nintendo and all of these things in the very, very near future. Again, they're saying that it's supposed to be an announcement sometime this year. The only thing I can think of is that if they're going to do it, then they would probably do it at the Game Awards. Again, the report that I heard, they were supposed to be talking about it no later or no sooner than March of next year. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and let's get into the next story that I got from Games Radar. So we saw in this generation, Xbox released two consoles. Ah, darn it. Two of them mother lovers. They released two consoles for a dual console approach. I mean, quite honestly, I don't think it worked out for them, but we're going to continue on with this story. Now, one console targeting, this was the thing, this was their strategy. We all know the strategy. One console was targeting the low end, the other was targeting the high end market. So, it looks like, it looks like this trend will continue into the upcoming generation if a report from Windows Central, and those guys, they know the guys over at Microsoft. They know Phil Spencer. He knows them. So this report is coming from Windows Central, if this is anything to go on, because according to them, Xbox will be working on a traditional console to go up against the PlayStation 6, but will also be developing a handheld, said to be the company's, quote, own take on the Steam Deck, end of quote. Now, the thing that is interesting is we heard that Microsoft would allow other digital storefronts on their platform. Now, could it be a situation where for the handheld, they allow this to be the case, but for the console, they keep it exclusively open only to their own store? I mean, again, that is I don't think they'll do that. I think one will be good for the other, because I'm sure, man, that was just ridiculous of me to even think that, because I'm thinking of it like this. I'm sure that they would want it to work in tandem. If you do get the more powerful Xbox, I'm sure that they would want to make sure that if you did mess around and you got the handheld, you would be able to get some benefits from that onto your console. Kind of like, I guess, like the PlayStation Portal, where you're actually able to access any games that you have on your PlayStation 5. You can play them on your Portal. I'm guessing that if they do this handheld, and we've been hearing about this for quite some time now. When I say quite some time, it's just been a couple of months. I ain't been that doggone long. But I'm taking it that if they are going to do that approach, they're going to make it so you're actually able to access all of your games on your console, take them with you on the go, because they're all about that cloud action, brothers and sisters. We all know that Microsoft, they love that doggone cloud. So I'm sure that that's going to be something that they're going to make sure, or want to make sure, that the two can work in tandem. So I don't know. It's another, man, listen, I just don't know. Xbox is out here, man. They are wailing and frailing out here, man. They like a fish out of water right now. I don't know what direction these guys are going in. 1 minute they're going up, 1 minute they're going down. I mean, it was what, a report. Now, I don't want to misspeak, but Sarah Bond did an interview not too long ago, and she was basically saying that Phil Spencer, he will say something and it's her job to kind of decipher what he's saying, where she was kind of alluding to him not being a very good communicator. And I'm going to tell you, I believe it. I wholeheartedly believe that, because Phil gets out there on the stage and says doggone Indiana Jones and Starfield ain't coming to doggone PlayStation, and doggone 3-4 months later, oh, surprise, Indiana Jones is coming out next year on the PlayStation 5. I mean, God dog, we've heard this time and time again from Phil. So again, I just don't know what kind of situation they're going to be in. I heard that Sarah Bond is the one that's kind of pushing this handheld agenda as well. This is kind of something that she wants to make happen or help to, come to fruition. So they're kind of all over the place. I don't know how this is going to work out for them. A lot of people may feel like, hey, they come out with a handheld, man, they going to tear the market up. Xbox is going to be back, God dog it. I don't think so. I just don't think so. If your games are going to PlayStation 5, no matter what they are, if your games are going to end up on the opposite console or the rival console, yeah, I just don't see you being able to keep the Xbox brand as strong as you would want it to be. But anyway, we will see what happens with this situation in the very, very near future. What I want to do right now is I can't not do this, because this is my guy right here. He wrote in. And if I want you guys to write in, then I have to read what you guys send me. Again, if you do want to be a part of listener feedback, you can either email the show at the analogcirclepodcast@gmail.com, or you can call in onto the hotline at 443-461-6551. So I want to get to your email here, Cody. And the name of this email is Tried So Hard and Got a Song Reference. Oh man, let's hear what you talking about, Cody. Cody says, but in the end, Xbox/consoles failed me. I'm pretty much done. Almost anything I can play, I can find newer or cheaper on PC on Steam. Sony has a creepy walled garden and locks out countries. Nintendo has squid people and YouTube militia. Millennial DMCA. I don't even know what that is. What the DMCA? Claims and Xbox is like Google, only a tiny bit less gross. The hard part is there are cheaper and high-end laptops and PC rigs that don't matter because the job market is insane. I can make $18 an hour, but only get 24 hours a week of hard work. Sure, the pay is great-ish, but the work is murder, and the hours and benefits are garbage. He says non-existent. He says, and I'm 45 with 20 plus years of experience. What do current gen non-privileged kids deal with? I have advantage and privilege, and I'm still as screwed over as them. We stress about games, but we forget what being the kids that can't afford games and food and rent was like. It is kind of true, Cody. You know, if you're blessed to get a good enough paying job, you do kind of forget, what it was like to not have, because, it's just me, brother. I don't have any children. I don't have a desire to have kids. I love rocking solo dolo when it comes to that. Me and my wife, I absolutely enjoy it. So my money is not being spent on anything outside of the household or outside of myself or treating my wife to some things. So my position is a little different. I kind of got a lot of flexibility with my money to a certain degree. And trust me, I ain't getting crazy, Cody. Brother ain't rich. You know what I mean? I try to be as careful with my money as possible. I'm not out here just spending it, man, just throwing it up in the air. I just ain't got it like that. But I do have a little bit more freedom than maybe someone who has a literal family of kids, 2 or 3 children. And you can kind of forget, if you're blessed to have a good enough paying job and able to get things that you want to get, food isn't really too much of an issue, where it's just you and you have to feed yourself or, your loved one or your wife or your significant other. Yeah, things can actually, you can kind of forget a little bit. But I'm going to tell you something, Cody. I try hard to never forget, because those days where I was struggling, scraping, and just barely making it, brother. I always remember those days, and I truly feel very, very blessed, to be in the position that I'm in. So just it's something to keep me grounded, to keep me humble. I never forget those days, because everybody struggles. And sometimes people get on their high horse and they might forget, that they were struggling just like this other person, and say, hey, you need to do better. If you want more money or you want to be successful, get out there and get it and do what you got to do. It's not always that easy. It's truly not. So I try to always make sure that I remember. But let me get back to your email here, Cody. And this is the thing. Every time Cody writes in, I start trailing off and whatnot. Really enjoy this brother's emails. But let me continue. He says, we stress out about games, but we forget, we're being kids that can't afford games and food and rent was like life or games plus a $700 Sony tax. I either pay rent and bills and for food and my cat, or I pay for a new PC and food and rent and my cat and consider moving, or I move to a cheaper place with no job opportunities and tighten my belt, and I get even madder at big consoles and companies and quit gaming. Crud, is that the answer? He said, crud, is that the answer? Or I don't game. Hey, I'm going to tell you something. Listen, brother. Hey, man, even if I got to sit a generation out before I go out there and can get the newest one, I don't think I'm going to quit gaming, Cody. I just don't, man. It kind of got me locked in, my brother. They kind of got me locked. I don't think it's something that I would leave. I would just wait. I would just wait and pick my spots, try to get one used. I don't really like to get my consoles used too much. No shade to someone that does. No shots, please. Come in peace, but I try to get them new because I just don't want possibly someone else's problems. But let me finish with your email here, Cody. You continue and say, I moved to a lower area and you say $700 PS Pro for me. I don't make a disposable income. I don't get couch co-op games or a decent single player game once a year. What? Are you serious, Cody? Get out of here, brother. You don't get a single player game once a year. I mean, I guess, look, we all have different gaming tastes. I can understand that. You say my choice is not games. Hold on. Yeah, my choice is not games because 10 to 20 million play. God dog, Cody, I got to be honest with you, brother. It's a long email right here. This email's kind of long, brother. This is a mini soliloquy. All right. He says, let me see. Man, hey, Cody, God dog, brother. Man, I got nothing but love for you, man. Let me see if I can get through this one. He said, because 10 to 20 million players is $60 a year is less than 250 to 400 mil at $4.99 a month. Plus a $10 startup for 10 years is where the AAA industry wants to be. They want all the money. They want all the money. Everything that they do is a money play, Cody. That's $70. Going up from 60 to 70, it was just a money play. They say that games cost a whole lot more. And granted, I don't know what the heck Sony is doing. They have gone and, man, them jokers is doing cocaine right now. Some of the budgets that they have for some of these games are crazy. I mean, you get a game like Ratchet and Clank that didn't even cost half of what Spider-Man 2 cost. And Ratchet and Clank, to me, was a better game. I mean, it was shorter, but it was better. I had a much better time with that than Spider-Man 2. But let me continue on, brother. You say AAA used to be quality. Now it is a stand-in for longevity and all the money. 3 years at an A. 3 years at an A means 3 by 3 years. No, 3 times 3 years of cheap cash. Bye-bye. Take out $75 a year plus subscriptions, $900 plus 60 times or 60. 60 times a title over 12 years. I should have bought a gaming PC. He says, RoboCop was a warning, not a violent movie parody. Cody, I'm going to tell you something, brother. Man, whew. Brother, you might want to call, man. Call in on the hotline, brother. Call in if you want, Cody. Yeah, man. This email was something. Great email, my brother. Great email. But my reading skills ain't all that great. I'm stuttering and muttering all over your words and whatnot. Probably done butchered half of the email. But I get it, though, Cody. I get it, man. Listen, these companies that out for our money, we all know that. We know what the game is. They're always raising the prices. They want you to be in this subscription. They want you to pay this much more extra. They want to DLC you to death or gas games you to death, with different skins to buy and things of that nature, all for the sake of getting your money. Now, granted, for me, Cody, again, I'm of the mindset, you give me something I like. You give me games, I give you money. Or AKA, you give me entertainment that I enjoy, I'll give you my money. Now, y'all know that I'm not part of any of these subscriptions. I don't have a PSN. I don't have an Xbox Live. I do not have Game Pass either because I don't play online like that. So they're definitely not getting me on that, Cody. Again, the $700 PlayStation 5 Pro. Seeing those games, man, at that State of Play, it's not really helping their case. And they showed off that Joker Herman host. That brother got up on the stage and said, we want to show you some additional games that we didn't talk about before, that are going to be PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced. These jokers showed Metal Gear off 3 times. They showed off Spider-Man. Well, the original Spider-Man, that was new. Metal Gear was new and something else, but they were showing these titles over and over again, acting like they had more than what they really did. So yeah, that's 700. I ain't really feeling that. But Cody, I appreciate this email. Now I know, brother, you sent me another one. Hold on. Let me see. Hold on. You sent me one today. I'm gonna read this one real quick, Cody. I'm mad, brother. I ain't gonna be able to read that other one, man. Just for the sake of time, I ain't gonna be able to get to that one today, my brother. But Cody says, now the title of this email is Xbox exec reveals how much money Microsoft has made from Halo. Now, this is pure Xbox. It says, Cody's email says $10 billion, but they still decided to axe 25 people from Sky Labs. It will never, he says, it will never stop me from the having to catch my breath and how a company will brag about success and then cut jobs, normally on the lower paid support roles, while execs get a fat $400,000 bonus of some type. Crickets. You're absolutely right about that, Cody. I mean, they made, God dog, $10 billion. Whoo! That's a lot, man. That's a lot of scratch, I will say. But yeah, it's all about cutting costs. Matter of fact, Cody, I'll tell you this, man. Just today, a couple of hours ago, I called my insurance company because my auto insurance went up. And I had to ask this brother. I said, man, why is my insurance going up by $32? What is happening? This joker told me, well, because the market was down 20% last year and it's down again this year by 20%. We had to raise your rate. And I'm saying to myself, what the heck that got to do with me? Y'all ain't paid for nothing extra for me. I've not given you any problems. But just because you're hurting, because you're not meeting your targets, or you're not getting the money that you want to make, you just are going to raise my rate for nothing. And that's the thing. Unless you own your car, which I still got about another 2 years, maybe slightly less than 2 years before I own it. But unless you own it, you still got to get liability. But this is what they do. This is something they do in every single business, Cody. If it's a way that they can cut costs, you could do an amazing job and they're going to cut you. Look what happened with Sony and Insomniac. Doggone Insomniac had people get laid off after their track record, after they've been the most busy first-party studio that they have had this generation. But yet they cut their jobs as well. It's crazy. But Cody, I really appreciate your emails. Thank you so much, man. I really, really thank you, man. Cody, like I said, brother, I'm going to have to read that big one, man, that War and Peace email at another time, my good brother. But again, I truly, truly thank you, man. Please keep writing in, Cody. Thank you again, brother. But let me get on to the next story here for the sake of time. Let's see if we can get out of here in an hour. Here we go. This next story, I actually also got it from WCCF Tech. So according to he's a pretty reputable insider, Lunatic Ignis Resident Evil 9 will be releasing in the second half of 2025, allegedly, and will have a teaser for the game coming in the next few weeks. Or it could possibly be months. That's when things start getting a little iffy, because Insider is saying that they're pretty much doing a guesstimate. They don't know 100% for sure, but if they strike in the next couple of weeks, it's like, oh man, look at me. I'm a genius. Look at me. I predicted it. I knew this. I know people. But if it takes a couple of months, they can still say, I told you. It was just going to take a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks, couple of months. Makes them look like they're right. It's not quite like Jeff Grubb. Jeff Grubb, man, again, he said that state of play was going to happen on the 24th, and it did. I mean, Jeff Grubb, again, he's not batting 1,000, but that dude is darn good. If he says something, I pretty much believe it. But let me get on back to this story about Resident Evil 9. Now, I'm writing this. Oh, yeah, I was writing this before the State of Play event and all that stuff. I thought maybe it would have shown up there possibly, but it didn't happen. But the other thing we have to remember is we also have Tokyo Game Show and the Game Awards at the end of the year, and possible PlayStation Showcase that may be coming up sometime this month, or at least maybe by the end of the year. The last thing I heard, I'm sure you guys heard the same, was they're supposed to be having a show sometime in December. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know, but for any Resident Evil fans, just be on the lookout for the next couple of weeks or possible months to actually get that teaser trailer or that announcement for Resident Evil 9. Let's go ahead, guys, and let's move into the next. Hold on. Before we get into the next story, I think I covered this about Codename Veronica. I kind of got a understanding of what. There was another rumor happening about Codename Veronica. Capcom wasn't really going to give it that Resident Evil 2 off, that polish, or that Resident Evil 4 remake polish that those games had. And it seems like that's the same thing that's happened with Dead Rising remake, remaster, or whatever it's called. It seems like it is the same game. They didn't change too much. They just gave it a much better coat of paint, as it were, brought it up to date, but they really didn't do anything about the controls too much. The gameplay is kind of the same. Some of the same problems are still occurring, but it's just up to date as far as graphics go. So I'm guessing that if they're not going to be putting their best foot forward, and that it's kind of going to be like a semi-half step, as far as Codename Veronica goes, is probably going to fall possibly somewhere in the lines of the game Dead Rising as far as the quality goes. But we'll see what happens, man. But let's get into the next story that I actually got from Games Radar. So, in Ubisoft news, Assassin's Creed Shadows will feature all 4 seasons in the game. But according to Ubisoft art director, his name is Thierry, man, y'all know me in names, Dan Man, hold on. I can do better than that. All right, his first name is Theory. It's spelled Thierry. Why is that Theory? I guess. And his last name is spelled Danser. That's Dancer. And it has an EAU, Dancer, I guess. Anyway, man, listen. The seasons won't impact gameplay. Now, for example, if it's raining outside, I had to get the heck out of that one, man. Pardon me for butchering your name. But, for example, if it's raining outside and your climbing conditions, they won't change to your character possibly slipping or, it being, the character sliding off the side of the building and it's harder to climb via like Zelda is in certain cases. Oh man, it can be so frustrating at times. They're not going to do that. He's going to still climb the same way that he would. Even if it snows outside, you won't have to worry about the guards tracking your footprints and things of that nature. So ultimately, basically what it boils down to is you won't have to worry about additional gameplay challenges that could impact your fun factor. Now, I'm taking it. This might be a result of Star Wars Outlaws because people got tired of the sneaking missions, being a little hard at times. So much so that, we're all aware of this. I'm definitely aware of it, where they actually patched it and, to make it more forgiving and not to interrupt the player's fun as much. So I'm taking it that they probably took that to heart. It's not that they couldn't have made it so, you're slipping and sliding off of brick walls and stuff that you're climbing. They just wanted to make the fun factor, stay, remain and not make it extra challenging. And I must say, I got to tell you something. I have been playing Star Wars Outlaws and God dog, shout out to that game. Goodness gracious. That game is fun. I'm talking, it is a lot of fun. You go into outer space and you got activities. I'm not talking about like an activity too. You got activities to get into, going to different places, finding wrecked ships out there and getting supplies. This is a big game. This game is pretty doggone. I'm not going to say it's massive, but it's darn big, man. You got to think you're doing missions on land and you're doing missions in orbit. You're jumping from galaxy to galaxy. Man, that game is hard, man. That thing is dope. It's a good game. Right now, I would say if I had to rate it, man, that thing is sitting at a solid 8, maybe like an 8.25. It's a really, really dope game. And the thing I'll say is when they did add that patch in that made it so the missions weren't as hard, because you were definitely splinter selling out that joint. You was sand fishing like a mug in that game in certain missions. And when you would get caught, it was just an instant fail. Mission over. Now I've realized that after that patch, now granted, I haven't been on every single mission. I'm 20 hours in and the game says I'm only like, around like 47% complete. I'm not even halfway done and I'm not even doing side missions. So I'm just saying that now up to this point, I've noticed that whenever somebody does see me, and normally it would have been mission over, they give you a little bit of time. This is so cool. They give you some time to shoot your way up out that joint, to blast your way up out. They'll see you. They'll give you a minute or two to take care of the people, the stormtroopers or, the captains that'll be around in the area or whoever they are. They'll give you a chance to actually, mow them down and then just go back in the hide. And I said, this is a lot better. So much more fun. To not be limited to, oh man, it's an instant game over. Man, that's so 2003, 2004. We have evolved. And most people don't like sneaking games anyway. So if you mess up, give the player the chance to correct it by shooting everybody down and hiding and moving on with the mission. I think if they had done that from jump, I think that the game would have done so much better because the story is pretty good. It's a pretty good story. I like that you got to choose different factions for certain missions and the way some of these outcomes are coming out, man, it's making the game kind of spicy a little bit to a certain degree. I'm not talking about anything major, but often people that they've been real close with, as it were. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, picking it up or getting it on a sale and picking it up. But I've been enjoying it. But anyway, we ain't going to get out of here in an hour. We're going to move on, though, into the next story. And I actually got this story from VGC. So we got some pretty positive news coming out of the Saber Interactive camp when it comes to Space Marine 2 Warhammer 40,000. So Saber Interactive Chief Creative Officer Tim Willits said this was the fastest selling game he had ever worked on, including, these are the games that he worked on, including Quake, multiple Doom titles, Rage, and Wolfenstein. Golly, that is just awesome. That is awesome. Anyway, I messed that up, but I had to give him a round of applause. This is his biggest game. With things like Wolfenstein and Doom and Quake. This is the biggest title he's worked on. He said, oh, and by the way, you know, if you're wondering what the connection is with Wolfenstein, Doom, Quake, and Rage, he was actually a studio head of id Software. And he actually revealed to IGN that Space Marine 2 had less than, this was nuts. Sony, listen to this. Sony. He said that Space Marines 2 had less than half the budget of Doom Eternal. And he also said, quote, our game director, Dmitry, oh man, this brother's last name is, it's Grigorenko. It's spelled Grinko. Now, y'all know what I'm saying, man. The brother named Dmitry. He said, has proposed some story ideas that could either be DLC or a sequel. He says, we're literally just catching our breath. This is 2 weeks out. We just need to get the dust to settle. But I can confidently say that we will not disappoint our Warhammer fans in the future. It's the big, it's too big of a success. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but hopefully we'll be working on Space Marine content for a long time. End of quote. So this brother's saying that it's a possibility. What is this? Okay. He's saying that it is a possibility that they may be coming out with DLC for this game, or at least a sequel. And he's looking forward and hoping that they'll be able to work on Space Marine content for a very, very long time. This is awesome. I know this has to feel good to him. Working on so many different titles, big titles at that, and actually branching off, leaving id Software, going to Saber Interactive, and actually having a breakout success like Warhammer 40K or Space Marine 2, a game that we've all heard of and we've known about as, you know, gamers that are very, very passionate about this industry. Not necessarily saying that we all partook in those games. I know I darn sure didn't. But just the fact that that game now is getting some just due after being around for many, many years, having a lot of different iterations of that franchise, of that series, I know it has to be a wonderful feeling for this guy. So shout out to him. Shout out to Saber Interactive. And hopefully this DLC will come to fruition very soon. Or if it doesn't, hopefully you guys will be working on a sequel. But shout out to y'all, man. Now, let's go ahead and let's get into the next story that I got from Comic Book Movie. So, again, we gotta get back into some rumors.
Rumor has it is something that only I know.
So, if rumors are to be believed from GameFragger, spelled FRAGGER.com, Rocksteady is working on a new Batman game, but it's rumored to not be part of the Arkham storyline, but instead a reboot. Yeah, they're rebooting it. And just to add a little validity to this, a job listing does confirm that the studio, Rocksteady that is, that the studio has started work on a new title over this past summer. Now, the more interesting thing about this story is it's being said, and this is where the twist kind of comes in. It's being said that this game could end up being a PlayStation exclusive because they are allegedly, now this is again rumors, they are allegedly putting up funding for the game. Now, I kind of paused on that for a minute because I'm like, whoa. Sony, I mean, listen, I know y'all money had a lot of things, but Rocksteady, not even just Rocksteady, more importantly, WB Games. Why would you allow this to happen? Now, the only thing that I can think of is that WB Games, they are hurting right now, despite Harry Potter doing very well. That Suicide Squad really set those jokers back. So I'm thinking of it from this perspective. What if Sony said, hey, listen, we know what's going on with y'all. We know what's happening. You had a rough night. You're like the Baltimore Ravens against the doggone Raiders. You were leading the game the whole time. You were doing good. You had a lot of hits. Things were looking pretty good. And God dog, you hit a snag out this joint. What if we were to fund this? Because we know you ain't, you got the money, but you don't want to, you don't want to spend the money because you're kind of, a little money shy after that pretty bad flop that you had. So what if PlayStation, what if Sony, we actually took on the brunt of that, and in return, you let us get the exclusive rights to the game. Now, granted, we've seen this happen before many times. It just happened with Kena Bridge of Spirits. They actually had Kena Bridge of Spirits for around like 3 years, close to 3 years exclusive to their platform. And eventually this year, Kena Bridge of Spirits came out on Xbox. What if it's a situation where this is the same thing that could possibly happen with this Batman game? I'm going to tell you something. Of course, this game is out, a ways out. I would think maybe closer to PlayStation 6, if not possibly a launch title on PlayStation 6, if this is true. So we're not going to see anything, any fruition, from this game for quite some time. But what if that is the situation at hand, that it's a world where PlayStation, they have Spider-Man on their console, they have X-Men on their console, they have doggone Batman on their console. God, dog. And I only say X-Men because we all saw the leaks. Insomniac, they're going to be working on an X-Men game eventually. It's coming sometime down the pipe in the near future. But could you imagine that kind of lineup? Good gosh. Big IPs, big superhero IPs all across the board. And they got Wolverine. Ha, man, it's enough to make you sick. But we'll see what happens with this. But let's go ahead, guys, and let's get into the next story that I actually got from MP First. Now, late last week, reports came out specifically from Colin Moriarty, that's how you say his name, that Concord cost Sony $400 million. Oh, my gosh. $400 million. Wait, it gets worse. Oh, man. $400 million. Hey, listen. Oh, man. Yeah, I had to catch my breath, man. God dog, $400 million. This is the thing. That number just sounds crazy. It sounds inflated. It doesn't sound realistic. And actually, to come out to kind of debunk this was Christopher Dring. He's also commented on this number saying, quote, because no game has that dev budget, the press reports are the laughing stock of the industry. Concord didn't even get any above the line marketing spend. End of quote. Now, if you're not aware of what ATL or above the line means, yes, definitely not Georgia. It's a term used by companies when targeting a large audience by using ads on radio, print media, TV, billboards, YouTube ads, etc. And to Dream's point, even for me, I don't remember, for as short-lived as it was, a huge marketing push for the game Concord. I mean, God dog, the game shut down 2 weeks later. Now, maybe it's a possibility that Colin is getting these numbers, these alleged numbers, this $400 million loss. Maybe he is getting the numbers where it was how much Sony was banking on the game making possibly over its lifetime. Maybe Sony thought that, we were told that Herman Hulse, that brother, thought this game was going to be Star Wars. He said this game is going to be huge. It's going to be big like doggone Jabba the Hutt. Star Wars status. Whoa, that brother was, you was off the mark on that one, Mr. Host. But maybe that's a possibility, that it was supposed to generate that much money and that was the money they lost. Or maybe it was a situation where when Sony spent the money to buy Firewalk Studios, and the development of Concord maybe were combined together. Like the purchase of the studio and to actually work on the game came out to $400 million. Maybe that was where the numbers are coming from. But either way, we probably won't know for sure for quite some time, if ever. But one thing is for sure, that if nothing else is true, this has got to be the biggest blunder that PlayStation has ever had in their history. This is first party Sony. God dog. And they missed the boat so bad that 2 weeks later they said, man, game over. We're shutting down, close up shop. Everybody go home, go on vacation. Do something, but you're not going to be working on this. This is over. So, God dog, Sony. I'm getting slightly wary about Sony. Just a little bit. Definitely not going to be out here, fake outraging or pushing red buttons. But I don't know, man. Again, what if this 400 million really is real? That is a huge hit for anybody to take. I don't care if you're $1 billion company. You lose $400 million. God darn. Maybe that's why these PlayStation 5 controllers are so high. Maybe this is why we're getting all of these remasters. Maybe that's why. Oh man, I'm probably going to get a little bit of doggone somebody going to want to hit me. But maybe that's why Ghost of Tsushima 2 doesn't have that polish. Ghost of Tsushima 2 looks good. It looks real good, but it just doesn't seem to have that polish that I'm used to seeing PlayStation games have. I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the new Assassin's Creed Shadow, and I'm saying, man, I don't know. If it's a big difference between the two. Could you imagine that we live in a world, where doggone Ubisoft is doing just as good graphically as Sucker Punch? Now, we can all say, well, come on, Keon, you're being a little extra. Sucker Punch ain't never been like the most beautiful girl out the bunch. The way that they put things together, they ain't never been the best looking. It looks good. They make some good looking stuff, but they ain't Naughty Dog. I would say this, man. When I saw Ghost of Tsushima 1, Man, God dog, man, that game was pretty. It was darn pretty. And this one, and I know it's probably, I mean, it is still, it ain't really early in development. It's coming out in 2025. So it ain't that darn early, but it just doesn't quite have that flair to it. I don't know. I'm thinking that this is going to be, I would be interested to see where this rates and where Shadows, Assassin's Creed Shadows rates as far as the score. Because they both got the same mechanic, pick a guy or pick a girl, different outcomes of what each character is able to do. I don't know, man. I don't have the scores being that far apart. But I mean, that's just me. We'll see. We will see. I might be completely wrong on that, but I don't know. Anyway, guys, let's get into, is this the final story for this week? Yes, it is. Let's go back to Game Rant and let's close this thing out with this story. So we've been aware for some time now that Cory Barlog, oh yeah, I'm talking about the man, the legend himself, Cory doggone Barlog, and Sony Santa Monica Studios, they have been working on something, but we don't know what it is up to this point. But now, new information has surfaced that gives us a better idea of what's being worked on. Now, from the outset, we do know that this is a new IP. That is something we learned a little early on, that whatever they're working on, it's a new IP, is not a God of War, which is excellent. So, now, this is where it gets interesting. Due to a recent job listing, we have also found out additional information about this. Now, the job listing says, quote, Sony Santa Monica Studio is seeking a highly skilled senior external development environment artist to join our team on a contract basis. So it seems like they ain't trying to hire somebody permanently. They doing that 343 situation. It says this role is pivotal in ensuring our external partners deliver high quality assets that align with the artistic vision of our next generation narrative combat game. End of quote. So we see there two things. This is a next generation narrative game. So that means this game that they're hiring for right now at Sony Santa Monica is coming out on the PlayStation 6. And the other thing is it's going to be a combat game. Interesting. Now, this seems to be a different game from a previous job listing from Sony Santa Monica, whose job opening hinted at an unannounced RPG. So we're talking about, you got a combat game here, narrative combat game, and then earlier on with another job listing, they got an unannounced RPG. So these guys are very, very busy, and also, yeah, I talked about that. Yeah, it's probably going to come out maybe 2026 or 2027. But to add more fuel to this fire, I mean, hearing about this RPG, this unannounced, hearing about this combat game, this narrative combat game coming out on PlayStation 6, because they said next generation, to kind of coincide with this situation, a few weeks ago, we did discover, I think maybe it was no more than 2 weeks ago, we were talking about senior manager over at Sony Santa Monica. Her name is Albertina Chu, who she actually said that they're working on several unannounced titles. So several to me just means more than one. And this is absolutely more than one. So as far as the RPG goes, I think that will be first. I mean, it's no doubt that's probably going to be first, because that never stated that it was going to be next generation. So we can probably expect this RPG that Cory Barlog and the team are working on to come out before the end of the PlayStation 5's life cycle and beginning, with the PlayStation 6's life cycle, we can probably expect to see this narrative combat game, but we shall see. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the gaming news this week, which leads us finally making its triumphant comeback. This leads us into video game theater. And in this week's video game theater, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a look back at a long-running franchise that came out back during the PlayStation 2 era. I'm talking about no other than Devil May Cry, or as it's lovingly known as DMC. But we're going to take a look back to March 8th, 2019, to Devil May Cry 5 at one of the early scenes where Nero is taking care of the opposition in convincing fashion. So we will be back after this week's video game theater with the final section of the podcast. Stay tuned, guys.
Hold the line! Hold the line! Nothing gets through! What's happening? What's going on?
You look like you need a hug, but you're not gonna get one from me. Better get lost.
Hey, who are you? Hey, you're gonna get yourself killed!
Don't crap yourselves. He likes to kill demon things. Let him do his thing.
You hear what I said, you dumb one-armed son of a bitch? You're gonna die!
Cheer up, crew cut. You taking notes? All right. Time to kick some ass. I've got some cleaning up to do.
Devil May Cry 5, ladies and gentlemen. God, dog. I absolutely love that game. And believe it or not, that was my first DMC, not my first, but my first mainline DMC experience. I played DMC from Ninja Theory, which, God, dog, man, those jokers, they pow, knocked that joker out the park. Home run. It was excellent. But playing a mainstream Devil May Cry 5, oh man, when you get those I don't want to ruin it. That game was so dope. I mean, for it to be my first full dive into the franchise as far as like one of the main games in the franchise, God, dog, I am over here salivating, absolutely salivating for a DMC6. I mean, that game left me in a way where I was like, oh my gosh, I had such an amazing time with that game. I highly recommend that. I got that game on a humble. I think I got it for like $30 in a sale. And I was like, it looks pretty good. Man, blew the doors off of any expectations that I had. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and let's get into the final section of the podcast officially. And I know you guys saw the question at the beginning of the show. And again, I appreciate you guys being here, but let's get into the question with each other officially here. So the question of the week is, should PlayStation continue to port games to PC? Now, this is coming on the heels of God of War Ragnarok being released on PC a few days ago, and it's being review bombed. I actually got this story also from PC Gamer. Got to give them their credit, but they are out there bombing, review bombing God of War Ragnarok for needing PC players to sign in with a PSN account. Now, some PC gamers are making demands to Sony, with one PC gamer saying, quote, Sony has managed to really piss off PC gamers with this one. They need to do something to make amends with the PC community. First, they need to backtrack on this PSN thing. Then they can announce Bloodborne for PC. And if they do this, we'll forgive them. Now, he says, now, where did I put that copium? End of quote. Man, first up, man, these jokers really think they the president, don't they? These PC guys really think they run something. These jokers are funny to me. Now, someone else said, and I quote, man, it really sucks to live in a country that was able to buy these games and then just slowly get that stripped away. End of quote, which he's referencing to PSN not being available in every country. Now, this is such a problem for PC players that they have tried to create mods to make it so you don't have to sign on to PSN. And for the record, Ragnarok is sitting at number 9 on Steam. Now, with these kind of problems that are happening over there on the PC side, I said, listen, man, what kind of numbers is Sony generating over there on the PC? Because look, you got some accounts, if they're pushing this narrative, and for the record, I definitely commend PC gamers for pushing back against this practice. This is something that I enjoy seeing it, where if you're not happy with something, the company is doing something that you're not a fan of, then you got to speak up for yourself. You got to take up for yourself. You got to take a stance. And I respect that wholeheartedly, that this is something that they're doing. Making demands and all that stuff. I'm like, that seems a little wild. Not wild, but that just seems like an interesting way to do things. That you feel like you got that much weight that you can say, look, now the guy could have been joking. It could have been a joke, talking about the copium and, then we'll forgive you if you talk about Bloodborne coming to PC and all that stuff. Could have been in good fun, so I don't want to take that too seriously. But knowing that Sony does have these kind of problems, especially with PSN, them pushing this narrative that PC guys have to sign in to a PSN account, knowing, Sony, you absolutely know that not everybody in every country has access to PSN. So these guys are going to be out in the cold. Well, you ain't got to be out in the cold. You can always get a PlayStation 5. You can get a PlayStation 5 Pro, so it's not like you're completely kicked out, and I don't subscribe to the situation of you being forced to go out there and get a PlayStation 5. No, nobody is holding you for ransom. Nobody is threatening you violently or anything like that. Nobody is, talking about, doing anything bad to your family. No. It's a choice. You don't want to pay the $500. You don't want to pay the $700. Then you don't play the game. It's no guarantee you get to play the game if you don't want to spend the money. So, no, I'm not a person that's going to say that that's the case. They're holding you over the barrel, the fish barrel, and they're making you buy it. No, not at all. It's totally optional. But where I do kind of veer off and say, it is wrong is knowing that, they don't have the PSN in every country, and that they're selling these games knowing that these people won't have access to them. So, I I started, like I said, I started looking up some numbers to see, man, how good are these games actually doing on PC? Now, Ghost of Tsushima, that seems to be the one that is sold the most, at least the fastest, as it stands right now. And that game is actually sitting at 600,000 plus copies. I mean, that's pretty good. Man, that ain't good, man. You got 1 billion PCs out there and 600,000 people got it. I mean, fastest selling, but numbers ain't doing much. Then you got Spider-Man Remastered. That sold 1.5 million copies. You got Days Gone. That sold 1.7 million. And then you got Horizon Zero Dawn. That sold, 3.3 million units. So only one game on the list as it stands right now has seen over 3 million units sold. To me, this is just extra money. You know, this is just, man, let's get another jet money or something like that. Some throwaway cash. Man, I just don't know. I don't know if PlayStation should do this. I mean, of course, like Cody was bringing up earlier, these companies, they want to squeeze us for every penny, nickel, and dime that they can. So no, I don't think that Sony will stop putting their games on PC. Should they possibly stop doing it? If it's going to make a rift with the PC crowd and it's going to be certain people that don't have access to the game because of, you know, wherever they're geographically, located, then yeah, I mean, maybe you should until you can come back to the table with a better, more clearer vision. That way, people aren't necessarily ripped off, because not everybody that games follows this stuff like we do. You know, there are some people that they'll see it on the store and they'll think they can play it. They buy it and possibly get ripped off. It happened to me. I thought I could buy a Ninja Gaiden on the PlayStation 5 because it was on the store, and I bought it, and that joker never showed up as a download. Thing said it wasn't even compatible after I had bought the game. And Sony ducked me out. I couldn't get anybody to get my darn money back. So yeah, bump you, Sony, for that. You know, so Sony is not without blemishes, and this is a blemish. I say they need to stop selling games in at least those regions where people don't have access to the games. But I want to hear from you guys. I've rambled on long enough. We unfortunately didn't make it, to the hour mark. We're a little over, but I want to know what your thoughts are. Again, should PlayStation continue to port games to PC? If you want to be a part of the conversation, as always, you can do it 2 different ways. You can either email the show. The email is the name of the show. It's the Analog Circle Podcast at gmail.com. Or you can call the show, and the phone number is 443-461-6551. I was your host, Keon Mitchell. And again, I want to shout out you guys for being here. And one more time, I want to shout out to Cody Clark for writing in this week. Thank you guys so much. So with that being said, before we wrap this thing up and put that bow on it, always remember one thing. It is not about the consoles. It is about the game. So until next Wednesday, when we do it again, until then, you guys take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.